quickly the story so far. First few turns of the game, we saw Swedes and Danes go to war again, like in the last game, a little later, or a little earlier, and both of them worn out. Came to a peace agreement. We were going to violate that peace, but we chose not to. So we're going to restore that alliance that we had kind of expressed there. Brandenburg ended up forcing the Poles to remove their fortress there by just ravaging the area, and has gained Pomerania and is moving in and gaining Hanover now. A bunch of war between the Poles and the Russians. While the Poles have pretty much gained all of the Baltic states, the Russians made a stab for the victory at Kiev, but got defeated by the Ottomans. That was a card that was out. Charles XII is very, very powerful when he comes into battle in favor of the Poles. More limited build-up than I want, usually. Like, my desire for every country, if I'm playing the country, is stay out of war and build up my economy. And that this game really doesn't let you do that. That results in turtling in a lot of games kind of like this. I feel like this game puts you in a position where too many people have a lot of opportunities to sort of grab for the victory, that turtling becomes much, much harder to accomplish. The only person really managing to do it in both games, honestly, is Brandenburg. They were creeping up on a victory by doing it in the last one. I don't see this game going 16 turns. On the other hand, I also don't know if the campaign is sort of covering the entire period. Like, I'm thinking it's more just a start point, and time is sort of relative and everything. I really don't know. It doesn't feel like it's covering the whole, what is it? What do we got here? 170 years or whatever that the game's supposed to cover. I don't feel like it does that. I feel like it's more like, even if the 16 turns happened, it doesn't add up right when you compare it to the scenarios. So I really don't know what's going on there. It's not like it's just different starting points. It's more like, I don't know. And I have to look at the rules of the other scenarios, see if I want to do any of them. I did find a coin down in my bedroom. I think it must have like fallen into my clothes or onto my sock or something and got taken down that way. Not a good thought. I don't know where it came from, whatever. Time to cut. It's fairly early on Saturday. I think about 1 p.m. Actually woke up at like, I don't remember what, some stupidly early hour, like 6, but then went back to sleep. Because I had kind of a weird night. Went dancing. It was more packed than it's been ever. It's been getting more and more packed. It's like graduation weekend and everything. It was just worse than it's been. I had expected a couple of weeks ago that it would die down. It kind of didn't. I didn't realize the quarter or whatever went as long as it does. But anyway, because I had seen like people putting graduation stuff up before. But I left before midnight, like before 11 actually. It was so bad. Like, I get there at 8, music doesn't start until 9:15, 9:30, and it was too packed by 11. Ran into a couple of people in line who were unhappy to see me leaving, but then ran into another couple who had looked at the line and said nope, and got a ride home with them. And because it's graduation weekend, or maybe because high school is out or something, I don't know what, there was a huge party in the park behind me. And I was kind of convincing myself I'd nosy around there. Might not show my face, might just, walk by, sort of. But it was actually hard getting onto my street and everything. It was the biggest of such parties that I've seen in a while. Well, that I've ever seen here. Those parties happened a little bit last year. Apparently they're starting up again. But while I was eating a dog or something, waiting for, and getting ready to go out, still dressed and everything, just psyching myself up, what sounds like a fucking shotgun blast goes off. And kind of like, not sure I want to nosy around if there's shotguns going off. And it wasn't a mistake in terms of, like, I don't think. Somebody suggested it might be a firecracker online. Certainly wasn't like a car backfiring. I don't think it was a firecracker either, but some of them just make a lot of noise, so maybe. But police and fire showed up. All kinds of emergency vehicles showed up. And I checked the online stuff, the blotters and everything. And I could find 2 reports, but not from the police. One was assisting the police. This is for the fire and EMD or something like that. I don't know. I don't think it was EMT, actually. And the other was for a medical condition at a different address, both very close to me in the park. So, I don't know. I finally moseyed up there and looked around while all the emergency vehicles were up there. But just to see if I could get a hint of what the hell was going on. Because, there were, like, kids stopping their cars in the street, dumping people off, trying to find parking somewhere on the hill or something. Apparently the whole park had been full when we drove up, and, like, my street had cars parking on it and everything. And anyway, I ended up, like, falling asleep soon afterwards. Then when I woke up, I went to the park again to see what I could see during daylight. And it wasn't too trashed. There was some garbage around. I found some nachos. That's about it. But, yeah. So anyway, what it means is, although I had all the heavy drinks that I have when I went out dancing, which is like, I have 3 or 4 more expensive beers, that was pretty much, I think I might have, the last beer I got was one of the light ones. I just get like a PBR with a lemon or something. And those, unfortunately, I think that they don't fuck me up, but they must, because I wasn't in too bad a shape off of the heavy ones. And it took like more than a half hour to get a beer in the line. And that was kind of what decided me. I just sat outside and smoked and finished my beer and decided, I can't face getting a beer again. There's still a line around the block of people trying to get in. So after that long chat, anyway, I'm back up here, ready to play, ready to start another turn. I loaded the last one up, I believe. So, and I hope it's on BGG. Because I got home and was kind of buzzed, but not as bad as usual. So let me start with the economics and whatever. Not a lot of time spent not playing. I played just before I went dancing. But but somehow that interlude, whatever. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot the cards. But that interlude has just like made it very, very difficult to do the simple things that I'm doing. I'm completely clear-headed and whatnot, not feeling at all down or anything. I got the Danes and the Brandenburgers done, but and I'll do the income. Let's look at the cards. Maybe that'll get me more in flavor. Okay, George Wildham. Play this card in an empty slot in an enemy court. One of your control markers on it. The power of that court may not roll dice in battles, but they can discard it. We had this last time. This one can only be played on people if you go after them in the production phase. Otherwise, they'll throw it out. Charles X, we've seen him multiple times. He's in the rules. Capital and 3 other starting provinces of any one power. That's a lot. You don't have to pick which power, but that's a big ask. It does give you some mercantile. I don't think he's worth it in general. Rebellious Cossack hetman. Place Khmelnytsky in an enemy province with a different religion than its controlling power, then immediately ravage there. Then Khmelnytsky moves and fights his infantry but cannot assert control, and immediately ravages when it enters a province, even if occupied. Okay. He sounds like he's violating several, like he's changing the rules enough. Ivan Mazeppa sounds familiar. Maybe he's a rebel in EU. You may discard this card from your court when asserting control in a province to replace an infantry or cavalry unit in an adjacent province with one of your own. The newly placed unit may immediately battle and/or conquer as though it had just moved into the province. Okay. Again, that's expensive. You're paying card price for an infantry. That works for some people, like Poland. Poland's card price and infantry are the same. Everyone else, I think, pays more. At least a little bit more. Well, Brandenburg has cheap for both, which is kind of nice. So that's something to keep in mind, is that cards that give you a troop, that depends on the costs of your troops and your cards. You may treat one of your power's infantry, I think that's a probable miss, as a hit in each battle. Maurice was a major military innovator. Invader, yeah, not really. I'm actually not going to jump to the maritime trade. I'm going to put these markers up here, but I'm just feeling too fuzzy headed. In terms, I don't know, it's weird. It's not like I feel like my brain's not working. I feel like my memory of the game is not working as well as it should. And I'll futz around a little bit and we'll see what happens if we get back to, or when we get back to it. Okay. I also have to make that hard decision again, like last turn. Does Brandenburg want to jump in against Poland? See, here's the problem. Poland at its weakest is probably something that Russia is beating up and probably is about to win. If Poland's holding the Russians off, they have enough to like screw with whatever Brandenburg is up to. Now, right now, Brandenburg is busily adding territories and whatnot. I want to be at a size that I can hold my own against the Poles before I throw off vassalage. And also, I want to be able to grab Danzig. I don't feel like I'm in that position right now. I haven't positioned my forces there. I could, of course, demobilize my forces and rebuild them, but you only have so much production to build with. the money helps keep your armies in the field, but it's not like it's a value in building forces, but it takes more than just a couple of coins to build the forces. They cost, in a way, they cost more to build than they cost to maintain. I like this. In a way, they kind of don't, because it's not money. Like, you can throw goods in. I really think the economic system works in a way that I very much like in terms of gameplay, etc. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but there are things in its thinking that work really well for me. And I don't, it's certainly no worse than just, like, it's an improvement over what usually is there, which is, oh, look, I produce so much cash out of all my locations. Maybe I have a manpower limitation as well, which is already kind of reflected by the force pool. You could make some arguments that it doesn't really work because you should be able to tap into the manpower of other areas. And that, somebody who has a lot of manpower or a lot of different army types available, a lot of counters available, is, I don't know, they're expressing something about the size of the territory they control in addition to everything else. It's a mixed view, because I feel like you could, as certain countries, probably bring forward troops from conquered territory. And certainly it doesn't make sense to say Brandenburg is limited to the manpower that they have in these two spaces, for example. And Sweden, actually, it's reflected here. But Sweden was able to put up a high proportion of their available people into the army compared to a Russia or a Poland, which is already reflected in the countermix. That's fine. That's why Sweden has a big army. I don't know. Yeah, they have no crosshatch units. Denmark has crosshatch units. Brandenburg certainly has a lot of crosshatch. There's a couple in Poland, but yeah, I don't know. Brain's not working right. It really isn't. Back up here to give another shot to this after getting sucked into videos that I don't even know why. Like, I don't know. Stuff about this Lego case that's a couple years old and vaguely local. The mercantile phase, and again, the Poles giving Denmark $2, all that grain. I don't know, I end up pairing up stuff anyway. One interesting thing that happens as I move to the finances phase, which is when we declare loans and pay upkeep, is that the order that you go, if you've seen that, like, not a lot of thalers have been pulled, you might want to exchange more in the hopes of getting thalers. Now, I mean, money is better than than other goods in general. Sweden has the exception over there, but it's not that much better. And if you have a fair amount of coinage in your hand, and pretty much everybody does, even the Swedes who are the poorest, it's not really worth fishing to get them particularly. So I'm kind of beginning to feel like Poland continuing to give $2, which I did pay out already, to the Danes, they probably ought to drop down to only giving $1, trading in 2 grains instead of, well, they're trading 3 in along with the timber. They're trading all their dupes in. But they ended up getting 2 dupes anyway, so it doesn't really matter. All right. And now Prussia gets to determine who goes first on the finance phase as well. Probably the same order. Sees much value in taking out loans at this point. Again, the only times I've done that is when either I have a real easy stab at victory and I just need to build more troops or something along those lines, or I have a really low economy and need the money to push the economy forward and keep going. Everybody's economy is cranking pretty well in this game, actually. Or in reaction to someone building up a big army near you. Really hard time assessing the situation between Poland and Russia. Russia got chosen to go first because the Poles are the hegemon here. I have a reasonable amount of troops. I got reasons to worry about Sweden. I got reasons, everybody's got reasons to worry about Poland. If they can take Polotsk and Smolensk, that's a victory. There aren't really cards that are looking like they'll help a lot. I don't know. The Hetman only takes infantry and cav, right? Yeah. And then what's this guy's the guy who goes around pillaging. It's hard to figure out that any of those cards are really helpful to anyone. I mean, to some extent, I got money. I could make the stab on Kiev. That may be my best move. It's gonna work. I don't have two sea areas. I was looking at building a fortress in Ingria. Again, thinking Pskov is, but yeah, I immediately start to realize, no, it's not. And I've lost Finland, which I had. Whew. So I'm looking more maybe at a try to defend my territory and build up my economy. I have a lot of wealth. Berg also takes a mixed strategy. They buy a card. They need cards to win the game. Now, they're at their limit of cards until they open some more up. They bought Royal Control here, which actually they don't need. Fuck. That's only $2. Give me that money back. I spent cash that I didn't need to. Oh, hi. Little spider. Yeah, I think so. Some kind of little... Oh, that's not a spider. Okay. Yeah, I don't need the Royal Control in Pomerania. Just under Prussian control. I bought a card. I bought the cattle here. I got nothing else I really need. My army is strong enough to move on. I don't see much reason to do anything else. That card is kind of useful in battle, and I'm like trying to fill in my selection of cards. I forgot to take my income from this. These are two different provinces. Again, the muted colors and whatnot causing me some issues. Danes improve their economy, and they're planning on taking Jutland by paying $1 for him, shipping him into Pomerania to disrupt things on the Brandenburgers. But now I come to Sweden, the last thing before the Poles, who control this hegemon. I don't know what to do with Sweden. I gotta build a big old army. That big old army might be useful against Denmark. Like, my feeling is if I start grinding against the Russians, I'm going to be in a position where there's this constant threat of Denmark. And one of the advantages I have here is I can reduce, I get units cheaper, which makes a warfare highly desirable. And Sorel and Trondheim are both open to me. I could conceivably take that without too much trouble and just make life a lot harder for the Danes to make their way into Sweden. And I think it's time for the stab there. Warsaw, the Poles were, I don't know if they were clever or not. Their thought was, if I make Denmark go first, Sweden can help us against Russia. And that's appealing to Sweden. But honestly, Sweden needs, 8 provinces total? I don't know what else. They need Stockholm and 8 other provinces, so 9 provinces total. So right now I got 3 of those 8 that I got to get, 5 more. 1, 2, 3. If I can start becoming a naval power, if I can just take out the Danes, that's very tasty. Not going to be that easy. I don't have enough force to take the fortress and take those 2 provinces. I'm still going with the stab, and this is going to piss the Danes off to no end. I could have done this, but sending 1 unit in doesn't seem too worth it, and this is just a 1-turn goal. I'm just looking through his ravaging could actually be useful. I don't have the points. I don't have the points for a card, so I don't know why I'm doing that. Okay. And that puts me over to the Poles, whose victory conditions are take Polotsk and take Smolensk. And that looks plausible. Charles is Cav. These are Cav. I could get down there. I don't know. I don't really feel like I have much chance. I think I may try to fortify my position, essentially. It's a big, ugly expense, actually. The Poles asserted royal control. Fuck. I did this wrong. I think I owe more. And a fortress. I owe another buck for the religious state in the fortress as well. In Riga, it is such a valuable location. I can build another trade center there, etc. But I'm not asserting any additional power in terms of military capabilities. Yes, the Russians didn't really build extra forces. They built a fortress, also kind of locking themselves in better. But I feel like, solidifying my position here, in part because the Brandenburgers probably aren't going to make it up to Riga and start forcing me into problems if I have a fortress there. So that was a ridiculously painful thing in my view. That's going to put us to the war phase. Poland has almost no money back left. They can't save Kiev, which sucks, but whatever. And the Russians have to pull out of there. And that means for the military, Brandenburg has the military advantage at this point. I'm going to pause for a bit. Still, I'm starting to feel like I could play through an entire turn up here. But want to watch the rest of the video, I left a bit of sunrise coming up. The amount I've been sleeping, this is Sunday, at least yesterday, the amount I slept, it leads me to wonder if I'm seeking that last refuge of, unaccountability. Now, which is simply sleep it all. Sleep through everything. Seems odd, but it was warm up here. I couldn't really make it. It feels more like there was nothing I was willing to do. It was warm. I was unwilling to be up here particularly. I wasn't thinking all that great. I didn't really feel comfortable just sitting in my chair watching videos, which for some reason doesn't bother me most of the time. Just didn't feel it. But I also didn't want to go out and do yard work or anything like that. What I wanted to do was kind of be up here, but I couldn't. And so I just, would lay down listening to a video, and then I stayed asleep. I don't know, for just in and out of sleep, but not really leaving bed for a long time. It's, it's dawn now. I've been doing this since at least dusk, but I think I was mainly sleeping through the day anyway. It's just weird. Anyway, here I am at the war phase. Do I have the right guy? Yes, the Brandenburgers have the military, but I have to kind of really refamiliarize myself with the situation pretty heavily as to who's doing what. I don't think anybody's got a major military victory. I don't think anybody has a stab for the win in hand. Russia is set up so they could grab Kiev, but they no longer have two sea areas, so maybe it's not that big a deal. It might not be worth the big pay of these. Poland did not set up to take Smolensk, which would be the win for them. They'd have to take Plots too. But Sweden is set to attack the Danes. And I think that's the biggie. And Brandenburg's going to keep adding to their territory. His first choice is, hey, who do we want to advantage, disadvantage? That's a hard to tell thing. I'm not sure what to do along the Russian-Polish situation. In the Swedish-Danish situation, the clear stab that's been revealed, I'm willing to take Denmark's lead here, and I'm willing to force Sweden to go first. That's going to put the possibility of a Russian threat, although they don't have a lot of cav here, against Sweden as well. Sweden may have just bought themselves the position they, cut a deal to avoid. Danes don't have, I've chosen the Danes next. The Danes don't have a military of their own to apply to this situation, but they can spend $1. They were going to send this guy away anyway. Let's send him up here to fight the Swedes. They could buy other miners off as well, but I don't really see a point to that. So we've got a quick fight here. Swedes don't have any additional military at this point. Oh, there was something that came up in the comments that I wanted to talk about. Now, I think that's a hit by the infantry. Yeah. And so the Swedes lose their cav. And does that make sense? Only 2? That can't be. I must not have given them everything they have. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 military left, not 2. I must have Lost count. They still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I built 2, 3. They should have been higher than 2 anyway. They should have been at 3. This worries me that I didn't get the numbers right over there on the last turn. But anyway, there are the Danes. Now I have to lose, what is that? A timber has to go up there that I'm not going to get production out of. What's interesting about all this is I could actually help the Danes here. I don't know if I want to, but I could, with Brandenburg by advancing into Trøndelag and try to give that back to the Danes as well, and just let them open up into full warfare. By sending the Danes into the Swedish war more completely, I'm kind of getting rid of any kind of threat that the Danes might apply coming down towards me, which is appealing. But now I have to think about the Polish-Russian situation and who I want to give first move to or second move. I don't know. I just noticed that Russia is on the verge of winning. They have enough money. I mean, maybe not. It's not going to be this turn. There'll be a turn delay. But they've got 3 cav they can move out of there, conquer Kiev, and they actually could send a couple of cav up to Finland. So I'm going to make them go first. If they make the stab for that, the Poles might be able to counteract it somehow. Russians blow their big wad of money pushing this cav out of Kiev so that they can try to take control of it, and burning grain in Red Ruthenia and Polesia, taking production away from the Poles. We fall back to here, giving up Pskov if necessary. That's not part of our victory conditions. And we have 2 cav trying to hit the... Okay, we hit the Swedish cav, and it did not hit us. So we can try to grab Finland as well. And this is a position that is putting the Russians into, into near victory. Basically, they don't get it at the end of the turn, but next turn they will be poised to declare a win, basically. So that was them. Now we're going to force the Poles to go. And this is powerful. Remember, a fortress has its ability to block. Well, it doesn't get that if it can't roll its die. So Charles is going to attack with... Now, this still isn't optimal, but he's going to attack with his 3 cav. He captured Estonia this turn. He doesn't have troops anywhere else. Unfortunately, it does have the ability to block Cav's sword markers. Now, there were regular hit markers on here too, and I was hoping to get some of them. That means that the Russians get to shoot back, and they get a single hit, killing a Polish cav, which I take off the military chart there. Is that right? Am I down to 2 military units? Yes. The fort and that 1 cav there. I'm not able... There's nothing to wreck there. So yeah. And that'll put it to Brandenburg. Finishing the conquest of Hanover Brandenburg's production is getting dangerously close to them winning the game. If I've made a miscount, like I did with the military or something, it could well be that, I don't know why this is sitting over here. I get the feeling Brandenburg did not get all the resources they were due. Maybe I just built that. Yeah, that's what happened. If I did a miscount, it's possible Brandenburg's already won the game and nobody noticed it. As it stands, though, they're going to extend their movement. In order to get the auto victory, they have to have 5 provinces under control. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so I have to extend to another one. I think I'd like to stay near Brandenburg so I can shift forces towards Danzig if I make a desire for going for that. But I think, well, it doesn't make sense for me to throw off vassalage right away. Maybe I just want to keep expanding my power base, because the Poles can't do a damn thing about it. Yeah, let's go into Bremen. And here it's 3 infantry going against the fort again. I've got another infantry at Danzig. See, this is the thing. I could have thrown 4 into Saxony. I think I'm fine. We get a mix. Probable hit. I gotta look it up because it's not on here. I think that's a hit because there's nothing against it. Removes 1 enemy if not blocked. Can be converted to a miss by a power special roll or Drabatus. Okay. So I've got 2 hits, one of which is blocked. I kill the fortress, but it gets a hit on me as well. So I will lose a military piece as the last fortress drops and proceed to start conquering Bremen. Now I'm not going to have enough forces to take that without building another one, but that's okay. And what's nice there is there's a cloth there. Hanover has an arms. These are and an iron. These are hard to. These are not common resources, so I wouldn't be doubling up on them much. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to move my thing. Hey, Kiev, you're under attack. Looks like the Cav got a hit on this and knocked out a Russian, taking their chance of victory down. I could have fiddled with this, but this is more important at this point. And also I wasn't sure I wanted to. We have mixed forces here. We have nobody in there that can be burned, though. And that is about it. That's going to put me to the end of the turn. The guy who mentioned that he thinks these go from left to right always, and I couldn't find support for that in the rules, says that the designer claimed it in one of the threads. I asked for a link on that because I don't want to hunt and hunt and hunt. There's, over 100 threads on BGG. And I do vaguely remember seeing something about the left to right. So I believe him on that. I could not find it in the rules when I tried looking. And it doesn't actually make sense to me, is the problem. Because there's things like this here, if no Polish province is under royal control, you can get your 5th card. Well, it may be that it's left to right amongst the ones you could fill. That may be the answer. In which case I'll shift these guys down. But so far I've wanted to fill the ones that I could lose because you get to keep the card once it's applied. I think that's the end of turn. I have to do the hegemony part of it, basically. Already my numbers aren't adding up. I have, oh, maybe they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I was coming up with 6, but I think it was like I was only counting 1 here or only counting +1 on there at different counts, and just kept coming up with the same number that didn't work. My mercantile for the Danes doesn't work. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 recorded. I'm constantly having this struggle. Unless I have a city here. These don't look like cities. Maybe I added the wrong thing at the wrong place. I don't know. But this constant counting is really a problem for me. Berg's victory here, they're going to destroy a Polish city as well. Which seems like a good choice. But that's wrong too. I don't know. I was off with the Danes. I'm off with the Poles as well. I count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1 is 4. And I'm down at 2. And Riga did not just fall into their hands. I'm just not trusting my ability to keep the count going. It seems like every single one is wrong here. I don't know if I'm moving the wrong counters or maybe moving them in the wrong direction or what. Like, this track doesn't work for me particularly well. The other side is really horrible. But I look at the Swedes. They have 1 city. That's all they have. +1 for their mercantile. They have nothing else. I've got them sitting over here at 3. They should be at 2. On the other hand, I think the Russians have more, well, the Russians have a big penalty there. So they have 1, 2, 3 cities with a -1. They're at 2. They're at the right place. That's the only one I got right. I'm gonna have to switch batteries. I was hoping not to do this, but I'm gonna have to anyway. Keeping tracks constant and constant counting problems. This is often an issue for me. Like, it's hitting me really bad right now, and I don't know what I've gotten completely wrong, where these charts just went off completely. But yeah, I gotta count. I gotta do the rest of them. But the fact that like I got all but 1 country wrong on the cities, and not a whole hell of a lot happened this turn. I'm not sure what's going on. I do have the hegemon in the correct place. At least there's that. With the cities, the production, I had everybody right except the Swedes, and I can justify that. They just lost Finland. They just lost Finland. So they lost control of that. Notably, things like Kiev, well, Kiev doesn't actually produce anything. Yeah, the raided areas don't produce anything. But if control doesn't change up here, so the Danes get the production on their track there, because control hasn't changed, but they won't be able to assess or to access the actual goods, which is important because otherwise all kind of crazy stuff could happen where you could change control. You could change the hegemon stuff. Right now somebody's sitting on 2 of the hegemons, and they're sitting at 2nd place, tied for 2nd, just 1 point behind the Poles, very close to winning the game, and that's the Brandenburgers. I really don't see how this game can get anywhere near 16 turns. It's just too hard to stop. Like, everyone is inching towards an automatic victory. And it's not like the automatic victories in coin or whatever, where it tends to be a certain amount above other people. It feels really hard to maintain any kind of balance in this that'll stretch the game out. That may be the intent, but it kind of belies my expectations when I hear extended game can go up to 16 turns. I mean, it just doesn't feel like the victory conditions need all that time by any means, that they're anywhere close. They mostly had the military right. Prussia was one lower than I had them, I think. I don't know. I've got 1, 2 here. Let me recount. 3. Yeah, I looked here. I got 4 there. Yeah, I got a fortress somewhere. Don't I? No. Where's the 4th one? I don't know. You got 1, 2, 3. I should have a 4th army somewhere. 4, there's the fortress, yeah. It's so dark it looks like it's not a troop to me. Okay, so theirs are at 4. They get a +1 is 5. That puts them at the right location. In the lead there. I don't know what I got confused with. But what I wanted to talk about was I had to reset the Danes. I had them right before. I forgot about these 2 boats up here. So they got 2 boats and a fortress. That gets them to 3. That gets me to the end of the turn. Nobody quite made their victory points. We draw a handful of new cards. You can see the mechanisms of this counting are really taxing me in this game. And unfortunately, this is so much the type of game that I like. But that one element might hinder me from being able to come to it and play it as a comfort food type game all that much. All right. Master Cannon Caster. Treat all infantry X results as an attack against a fortress. That's a nice little ability. Fortresses are tough to take. Infantry is good against them. During production, you reduce cost of imposing royal control by 1, but increase the cost of religious differences by 1. Gonzaga. In addition, you may produce dramatis personae cards with permanent effects from the discard pile. That's going to take your 1 production capability, but that's an interesting option. Being able to dig into all of that sounds really tasty to me. Von Kettler. During the income phase, you get random maritime trade if you have at least 1 ship of the line. This is similar to the one the Swedes already have. It gives them a couple of resources. 2 resources is better than 1, even if the maritime trade is a little better. But, I just noticed I have a +1 on here. I bet you that was one of my fuck-ups. I didn't see that for some reason. And Poland has a -2. Fuck. Okay. I see my miscounts where they're coming from. I've got to reset everything. We'll go back to that, but we'll reevaluate the hegemons. But let me finish the cards. I don't know why it wasn't, like, they just weren't coming to my vision, and that was probably my mistake. Menshikov, when your units are present in battle, enemy leaders roll no dice and have no special effects, but can be removed as casualties. That's interesting. And Fleming. During production, the cost of your ship of the line units are reduced by 1 if you use any timber, flax, or hemp. Reduced by 2 if at least 2 of those goods are produced. Wow! Somebody wants to go boat crazy. That is a definite biggie. Okay, now I have to look at the people who have these and what they affect. Let's look at Poland first. Poland has an extra -2 that I wasn't counting on their mercantile. Now, their mercantile, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. Is that what I have here? Yes. And going down to 2, and that explains why they at least were disturbed and wrong. I only have 2 military here. Well, yeah, but I have a +3 that I wasn't counting for Charles. So he's actually tied now with Brandenburg. We're not going to worry about whether or not I had it wrong in the past and that affected anything. And the Swedes have a +1. That's mercantile. I really have trouble seeing some of these. This one is really easy to tell. These two look too similar to me. So Swedes on the mercantile, I had them at 1 city, make it 2 because of their personal +1, bring it up to a 3, and that may have been any mistake that I had there. It doesn't really affect anything in the game, but it may explain some of the mistakes, some of the things where I was like, everything was wrong. Well, yeah, not really. All right, let's push this down. Let's put a die next to it to remind me that that's the end of turn, or that's the beginning of a new turn. And now I'm just so battered by like having to deal with all that counting. I absolutely need a break. It's a definitive answer by the designer on previous thread, and actually there's another thread that came up that referenced that that I was able to find on BGG. So I deleted my request for a link and put it in instead. And it is clear they're supposed to go to the left. Let's talk about what that means. To some extent, it feels a little weird, right? Because I've got something here, if province adjacent to the sea, if Moscow is under control. So you have to have the province under the sea to even get the Moscow or Kiev bonus there. Is that okay? Yeah, you know, you're saying, look, the minimal to start getting additional people, although some of them do come from Russia that are in the dark, is that the province, that you have something that's adjacent to the sea, that you're able to have, this broader connection with the rest of the world. And that kind of makes sense. We're gonna use this rule, but I wanna discuss the whys across the board. Let's take a look here at the Poles. Wow, the dust is really showing from the light. There's 2 Vilna under control, and then the no Polish province under royal control. What that means is Poland has to pick up a lot of cards before they can get the advantage of this. Again, do I see any real issue there? I don't see an issue with the Vilna thing in particular, but it does mean that Poland is going to, now that I have something under royal control, if I can hold that, probably never be able to get that last card. Big deal? Nah, Russia's only got 4 cards, and it's something of a maintain the sort of historical situation that Poland does maintain, rather than take advantage of putting things under royal control, which is expensive for them anyway. We'll hit Brandenburg last because they're kind of the most telling here. The Swedes, well, we weren't able to meet them anyway. The multiple provinces under control, they actually start with 4 or more at the beginning of the game, but for whatever, I wasn't able to, I'd already lost one or something. But the center of trade being the last one, this one feels fuzzy, like I kind of feel like there's a reason it would make sense that the center of trade would be a reasonable, would be a forking, large number of provinces versus having a center of trade. Seems like both would make sense, but whatever. If there's a good reason, who cares? Over here, this is really interesting. Copenhagen being under royal control. Their capital is the last condition. They have to, hold on to their other territories as well in order to fill those slots. Now, it doesn't matter, if you lose this later and still have the card, you're okay. You can still work forward. So any kind of argument about the second one could be filled like I did because I felt it was the easiest to lose, and then just sit there and you'd still be able to attract people to Moscow. So whatever argument I made for it makes sense that you have that sea area under control kind of falls flat, but okay, whatever. The final one is Brandenburg, though, where I was kind of worried because vassal status has to be ended before you can even hit these. Now that actually affects the play here, if nothing else. I'm probably going to end vassal status so I can buy another card this turn. Poland's on the ropes right now. They're facing a Russia that might be able to win. And it's an ugly situation for them. Just making sure that's blue under there. And they have the 3 or more provinces. They could fill that out. Here's the problem with the Brandenburg one, and this is, I think, why this rule absolutely makes sense, is that Brandenburg would be able to slip 2 more cards and get very close to their national goal, which is 5 of those cards, Königsberg and Pomerania, and then declare vassal, buy the last card, and have a stab for the win. Now, a lot of people have capabilities to stab for the win doing something, so is it that big a deal? Maybe, maybe not, but it might be very hard to take Königsberg and Pomerania away from them to stop them from winning. So I think it makes, especially since, they basically would be winning on one turn, that they're vulnerable to the Poles. So I think I'm going to quite possibly give up the vassalage. Now, the reason I might not want to is that my armies are out of position to face the Poles. And then I look at the military, and it looks like I'm going to have the military hegemony, but Poland has the production hegemony, which means I have to deploy my forces. Now, I'm not at the edge of winning like Russia is, so maybe I can get away with it, maybe not. I definitely should not have gone for Bremen, given, I had made the decision previously, look, I don't really think I'm going to shift these, but it is actually a big deal, and I don't want Brandenburg to have that ability to slip in as easily as they might. So it is actually kind of a thing. Okay, let me get on to production and get started on this turn. It's kind of funny. My life has narrowed to that window that my mom once accused me of. After my first wife threw me out, when I was down, I would spend the summer at her barn, well, where she lived in the family barn, and rather than just every couple of weekends, I would go up there to give my dad and me kind of a little bit more space, because we were basically sharing a one-bedroom apartment and doing all kind of shifting. Who gets to sleep? He would sleep in the bed. I'd sleep in the living room every day, and then he'd get up at 6, and I'd shift into the bedroom. There was an extra bed there, but he and my brother would sleep in the same room. But I just couldn't cope with that. That I don't know. I need to be alone to sleep usually, and. It just, it was just, you know, so cramped and so crowded and whatnot. And plus my games and everything were all up at my mom's. But she would mention, she would accuse me of basically, I did three things. I would, you know, sleep, eat, and shit, and that was it. And that's what I feel like was yesterday. She was a little wrong. Basically, I was up whenever she wasn't awake in order to avoid being around anyone. For the most part, yeah. Swedish stab, even if they didn't, you know, get a start to conquer Sorland, has desperately hurt Denmark's production capabilities. They're only at 3 goods. They still have a couple of cities, and they had some resources, you know, some cash to back them up. Plus, they get the trade. Poland doesn't mind throwing a lot of trade their way. They definitely caught in this production phase. I had the hemp and the fish look too much alike to me. I don't know, they both look like a fish dinner. And I had a hemp instead of a fish in the Swedish thing. It doesn't make a difference, but in terms of like, neither one matches anything else they have. Production, like I said, the Danes took a big hit. Swedes don't have great production. Brandenburg is rocking theirs, and that makes sense. You can see they're up at the top on, you know, most of the hegemony charts. That's their real danger, is that they conquer another area. They're going to get another one of these. They have to increase their production rather than anything else. So that may actually be their aim right now, rather than try to go for their national goals. Just go for the production gains, set themselves up. I am not going to renounce my vassalage. Am I? If there's a card I really want, I kind of have to. Is there a card I really want in here? Let me look. This Chakov is very tasty to me, and I don't think Poland can do much to me right now. So I'm gonna renounce the vassalage. This is a matter of like just looking at the beginning game state. I figure as long as I do it during production, it's okay. It should technically happen, or during income, it's okay. It should technically happen before the income phase, but I can calculate out the income that everybody's going to more or less get and make a judgment. And I'm in pretty good shape. Might even go grab Danzig. It's easy to take. I mean, right now, I just have to move in. And it's just too tasty a prospect, which means the Poles probably need to fortify that. They're struggling against Russia. It looks like they're entering a two-front war, but Russia could win the game maybe before Prussia does. Who knows? Everybody's, you know, so close to their victory conditions right from the start, or almost everybody, right from the start, that I really don't see games going beyond turn 8, even with the extended game. I just don't see the balance of power holding up. I am going to break here because my gut is telling me it's not happy. The heat may get up to too much today. It's supposed to get close to 100. And most of the house is okay. Up here gets hot. The basement is obviously wonderful for this. We were on the trade phase. Okay. Who has mercantile? Brandenburg. Loans. Everybody paid off their troops. Most of them don't have to pay. That puts us to the production phase. Oh, I guess we did the trade too. And again, we gave, we gave a couple of bucks to the Danes. I think I gave it to them. Forgot to move the die. Nobody made more than 3 trades, but 3 is still 2. We've been over these already. Brandenburg is interested in a couple of these cards. This one, better at hitting fortresses. This one better at imposing royal control. It changes the religious differences, but Brandenburg doesn't see many religious differences in their immediate position. Others are also valuable. The ship of the line giving a resource. This thing is interesting, especially to Russia, facing Charles XII there. And then the cheaper ships of the line. That's a really nice card. It's hard to justify compared to what people are going to have to be expending on. Brandenburg's not that interested in it, and everybody else is kind of locked into battles that don't require ships, but are tempting. It's still tempting. So I'm actually gonna let somebody else go first, because although I'm interested in that fortress reduction thing by a lot, I'm also interested in the royal control, and I'm willing to let one go in order to see a little bit more of what's happened. Actually, no, Brandenburg doesn't have the choice. The Poles have the choice. Ooh, that changes things. Oh, well, we definitely don't want the religious differences one. That's painful to us, and we don't want to face that. Fortresses, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not as convinced that the Poles want any of these cards, but they may be willing to push somebody forward. Who are we most worried about? Almost certainly Russia, and then Brandenburg. Question there is, do we want the Russians to have a chance to get that card that negates Charles? Charles is a powerful card. Ugh. That's a nastiness that I do not like the taste of. I think I'll start by firing off Brandenburg, giving them the option of the card that they want, whichever one that is. Build another infantry. I'm actually going to put it in Pomerania, not in Hanover, and put royal control in Hanover as in addition to buying the card that helps them fight forts. That should make it easier to take, putting us in a pretty strong position. We will continue with others, see what cards go. We're actually absolutely going to hold off on doing Russia, just in case somebody else buys that card. But then I have to make a hard decision as to whether or not I want to buy that card, just to protect Charles. Can't convince themselves that the card, not the one the Russians want, but the trade card, the extra production, is worth taking. They need to drop a couple of military units on the board. I was going to actually build a workshop here, but you know, I may need the money to operate that unit, so maybe a loan would have made sense. I don't know. It's tough. It's like you look at your cash and you're like, I got plenty. Maybe not. And equally important, Sweden does not have room for another card. I want to hold the couple I have. I don't want to throw anything away. So buying the guy who gives me extra resources is not even an option for them as they're put forward. It's okay. They need to build a military up. Poland goes next. They do buy this card. They also bought themselves another infantry so they can keep pressing against this. Something that I probably am forgetting at times. I remembered it this time, but only barely, which is that if I want to build troops, the religious modifier still takes impact on that. And I think I'm usually remembering, but I'm worried that maybe this cav got built somewhere like Riga or something like that, and I didn't pay it. I can't be sure. I had a big problem though. I can't build a fortress here now. I don't have enough money for that. I could build an infantry or a cav. I'm going to build a Polish cav in Warsaw to try to deal with Brandenburg if they advance on me. That leaves me 1 buck that I could move this with if desired, but that's actually of no value to me, so the hell with that. But yeah, I couldn't build a fort there. Expense of a fort, maybe I was talking in Danzig. The expense of a fort might not be worth it, given that they took the engineer who can destroy forts. That puts me on Russia. Russia needs a sea area. Actually, they need 2. They're getting Finland this turn. They need to take this back. And Kiev is also something. And then they can set themselves up for a victory in that way. And I think I want to go for that. Both Sweden and Poland have exceeded Brandenburg's military size on the hegemony. Now, Brandenburg gets to keep it for this turn, but depending on what losses there are, right? It's possible that that these nations that are more engaged in real wars are going to end up with a higher total military. They also boost their military up. They build a couple cav here, 1 down here. That keeps enough money I can move out of Kiev that guy out of Kiev if I need to. And I also bought royal control in a couple of spaces. This is a matter of royal control is very cheap for me. I could have built a workshop and increased my production. Maybe that's worth it. I don't know. Get rid of the Smolensk royal control, put another grain in there. Let's do that instead. It cost me only $1 to move the Kiev unit, but at least I get some production off of it. Russia doesn't have a hell of a lot. They don't have many cities within them. They don't have a lot of double production spaces. Smolensk felt a little exposed. It's already worth 2 value to me. Obviously things like Pskov, Polotsk, I could build up those, but they're really exposed, and I don't want to spend on them. That's going to drop us to the war phase. Brandenburg did place a unit, okay. The war phase is going to be Brandenburg's, and I'm going to pause there. In the military phase, Brandenburg is going to hold off. They may or may not move into Danzig. We definitely want the Poles to go before us there. But there's other considerations. First of all, Swedes and Danes, we don't know which way we want to land on that. We're worried about Denmark winning. We're worried about Sweden gaining power because they have kind of a strong capability if they can. It's nice to keep them tied up with the Danes. This is, I guess, perhaps the best way to put it. So we don't know which one of those we want to go first, but we also don't know if we want the Poles or Russians to go first. Because, we're going to go last, but because which one's more in line with winning the game? Well, we look at the board position and it's pretty clear to us that Smolensk is not easily takeable by the Poles. So I think we're going to force the Russians to have to take the first move. There's a huge danger here. If all the players aren't paying attention to what other players are doing and how close they are to victory and whatnot, it wouldn't be difficult to see someone saying, hey, I'll give you $1 if you let me go first. Victory conditions are complex enough. There's enough different routes available that you could be close to. Somebody's got to be ready when somebody makes some kind of suggestion like that to chime in and say, wait a minute, he's real close to winning. Here's what happens if he goes first or second or whatever. just as something to keep in mind. In this case, the Poles might actually not want the Russians to go first, and they might be chiming in there. Because here's the thing, Charles XII and my cav are available. They're present to be attacked. The Russians could actually gather a fair amount of forces, hit that, and weaken the Polish position. The problem, of course, with that is, how much does Brandenburg really care? They might want to keep forcing the Poles to build more troops. The Russians launch a massive attack against Charles. Now, Charles gets first swing still, but he's in trouble. He gets one hit. The fortress is not involved. Russians will take their... do they have a fortress they need to take? No, not really. Russians take a loss in troops. The ordering again, it's weird to me. And now the Russians get to swing back with 4 cav. And that's 1, 2. That's enough, 3. We've killed Charles. And we've killed the Polish cav. Bought off the unit that was down here, moved it into Red Ruthenia, and grabbed Kiev. We're in position to win the game at this point. Ruh-roh. The Poles could spend $1 and try to knock that out. We'll force them to. Yeah. I say screw that. I mean, seriously. They're like, you screwed us over. We tried to chime in and say you were putting us in a hard position. Fuck you, Brandenburg. We're not going to do anything about it. I don't know what they are going to do. Attacking Brandenburg here. Try to capture it or burn it or something. They're pissed. We each get a hit. We're just going to make the Danes go next. They're in an interesting position. I probably want to buy that unit. At the very least, I can send it up into Trondling and see if, you know, I can knock the unit out there. Problem I have is a couple of cav here. My intention was, I think we were forced to buy first. There was no fortresses. Now there's Swedish fortresses, which make life more difficult. I could do a number of different things. I think what I want to do is protect my stuff. So I'm going to pay to move this up into there. I'm going to move these 2 into here to protect it. And hope for the best that way. Do I want to move my fleet? What does sinking the Swedish fleet do? You know, it actually does something. I can't get there yet. But I'm going to move my fleets here. They could actually move 2 spaces, but don't want to do that yet. With the intention of getting myself to start knocking out some of that Swedish production that's coming off their shipping. And so we have a single fight against the Swedish cav. It's not a great fight, but it might save Trondelag, and I've got both my territories defended. Well, it does, as we have a couple more deaths. The Swedes, they have a complex situation. We have some cash money. I think we're going to spend, we can't, oh man. Well, we're going to spend to send this boat here to fight, to help protect us. We could send our own boat in and improve our odds, but a hit's a hit, you know? The question is what to do here. We could send 2 cav in here to fight those at even, but we've got a bit of safety. I think instead we're gonna, and I just gave them that production, we're gonna take it back away. I'm gonna have to recount again, obviously. And that's it for the Swedes. Now it's Brandenburg. They got a free move. We can try to knock that out. We could throw a buck in and make it a little bit easier. Maybe more than a buck, just to make sure the Russians don't win the game right away here. In addition, we have our conversion march into Hamburg. Doing that, I realized I forgot to do my naval battle there. The Swedish, well, let's call it a Dutch ship. I don't know. Does not hit the Danes. That looks like a shield if there's a fort. I think just nothing happens there. We took Trondelag. I marked that away. The Prussian, or the Brandenburgers, moved 3 units in against that fortress. Now I have a bonus against fortresses. Kind of cancel out. I could get rid of one of those, but we get a hit, 2 hits. That's good enough. The fortress itself, well, maybe it's good enough. Fortress itself gets a double block, so nothing's going to happen there. At the end of all of this, because I don't think, oh, Prussia had to pay, yeah. They got 1 for free. How many was I going to send in? Let's send 2 more in. Don't want to throw too much money away on this, but we also don't want to fail because the game's over if we screw up here. So 3 of our cav, yeah, almost let it just happen. 3 of our cav. We get hits. And they do not kill, so the Russians lose this. That returns to Polish control. Now, there's a location here where there are units from both sides, so this city burns to the ground. Becomes less of a prize. Unfortunately, we can't make our way straight to Saxony there, so we'll probably continue growing that. Bremen has to grow as well. No city there, is there? Oh no, there is a city already there. That is Bremen, in fact. Just one resource there, so no reason to make that royal control. That's something I'm a little iffy about. So the thing that I most like about the economic system here is that whole royal control thing, because that latches onto something I want to do. But I'm not really thrilled with the idea that you still collect income. I'd kind of rather it be you collect less income or something. I don't know quite how it would work, but I don't know. This works. It's nice and light. It's easy enough. That is the only place I think where there are 2 forces in a single place. So I have to do the recounts. Don't remember being completely blown away, although in terms of making mistakes, although I think there still was a fuzzy mistake here or there. I guess the big things are the Russians have moved ahead in production ahead of the Poles to become the hegemon of that. And that makes sense. The Poles took some losses. And in military, Brandenburg's fallen behind and Sweden is at the top. Once again, Sweden has 6 armies and they have a +1. Huh. I got them at 6 + 1. Oh no, that's not a +1. That's not military, that's the other thing that looks kind of like it. So yeah, they have 6 armies, which puts them ahead. At this point, the Prussian armies are down to just 4 plus 1 is 5. But they should have enough. Yeah, they certainly have enough that they can buy a card next turn. And in fact, we may actually be at the 5, but I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we're at 4. Well, we might be moving into the 5. We wouldn't have it yet. Sweden and Denmark are looking at, hey, things are going badly. Neither of us is going to win. I know you stabbed me, Sweden, but maybe we need to work together to make sure that Russia and Brandenburg don't get too far. Like, they're both chancing with victory right now. In particular, Russia. And Denmark's not going to be able to gain ground. But the problem is, Denmark doesn't want to lose this, particularly. And, I mean, Sweden could move out. Like, they could choose not to take it, I guess. Or they could give it back if they take it or something like that. But Denmark's really not happy about losing a territory. But on the other hand, Sweden is like, yeah, but I have the advantage, and, you know, I don't know. All right, we will break for a bit to charge the battery a little bit. It hasn't gotten too ugly hot up here, but it's also not late in the day where it gets really hot. Well, the income phase. Poland and Russia is starting to kind of decline due to the warfare they're having. Brandenburg, on the other hand, especially in just pure cash, is just pulling so much money in. It's kind of frightening. Actually come to the point, good deal of trade goods went through. There's a decent amount of chits in here still. But it could come to the point where people trade enough from their own. Now that's going to give the Danes a lot of money, but they got their usual 2 this time. Poland actually held off, I think, with something. No, Russia did. That they kind of wanted to, but chose not to give the Danes more money. It could come to the point where somebody throws enough shit in to exchange for that you have no opportunity to make an exchange later on. I don't know when the manipulating the market. Yeah, it happens probably when they go, oh no, it's at the end of the phase. So you could actually deprive the hegemon of his bonus resource, I think, by doing enough trade. That's going to put me to the finances. It takes a loan. Like I said, Sweden and Denmark feel like they have to try to do something here. They're just not quite at the, yeah, we understand what it is we want to do, what the deal is exactly. Because Sweden's like, yeah, I should get this. Look, I know I stabbed you, but, you know, you're going to be in trouble if I keep attacking. Plus, both of us are going to lose if we don't do something about, really in particular, Russia and Brandenburg. Denmark's like, yeah, but it wasn't fair, man. You screwed me. We had a deal. And I don't know where they're going to get there anyway. Nobody took a loan out. And I don't know how I'm going to get to the point where somebody, you know, I don't know how I'm going to get to that deal, basically, because it seems almost intractable. One side is saying, look, it should be mine. The other is, it should be mine. I don't know if they can come to it, but they kind of have to, because things are just too ugly. Russia is especially, you know, close to their victory. And Sweden might be able to intervene and cause issues there. They could not right. I mean, they could build a new army and send it into Finland or something. And Denmark is poised so that they could screw around with Brandenburg, although they're not powerful enough to do so. And the problem is the Poles are like, come on, guys, just do something. Maybe I'll give you $1 or something. I don't know. And the production phase was about to start, and Russia has the hegemon now. I noticed I didn't do the cards last turn. Crappies. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Moves and fights as a ship of the line. When this unit is battle, you roll dice and inflict losses before the enemy. So this is kind of like a Charles XII, but naval. Peter the Great. All kinds of hegemony modifiers. That's it. Again, those are seductive without being as valuable as they might seem. Christina of Sweden, we had her before. National ambition is to control at least 3 provinces in or adjacent to Hanover. Hey! Is that the game if Prussia gets it? Or Brandenburg gets it? Yes, it is. Somebody had better buy that. And that's kind of a problem. Like, you give it to somebody you've pissed off. Well, Poland is pissed at Brandenburg. But, who's going to take this shit, It's like, yeah, Denmark, you should take it. That might become part of the deal that we're looking at here. Battery. During finances, your base upkeep costs are doubled. Ouch! During your turn in the war phase, you may place 1 infantry in 1 province you control just before resolving a battle. Remove the unit after the battle. Okay. It's kind of a mixture. If you don't have a big army, it could be neat. Populism always anti-military? I don't think so. Frederick III. During the income phase, you can collect 2 goods from 1 workshop in each of your provinces under royal control. That is potentially very powerful too. A lot of good cards out here. Well, some good cards out here at least. And one of them's a hell of a landmine, which, hey, can Prussia buy anything? Yes, they have 3 or more provinces, and they took the vassalage. I mean, they could buy anyway by discarding. The win is worth taking something like that. But this is problem time. There is no question about that. The outline of the deal that's being proposed. Sweden abandons here. Denmark buys that card. We give Sweden the first action. They may not be able to prevent it from going over to the Danes, from being captured from the Danes. That's not too big a deal. It's not royal control, so nothing would be lost. And we can hand it back to the Danes after we move. So that's okay. So Sweden does that. Russia chooses Sweden to go first so that we can see that they're not building up an army right next to Denmark, and then Denmark gets to do their thing. What about, well, we actually are probably going to make Poland build first. Unless there's a card we want. I don't know. The important thing we had to look at is what about Prussia's hegemony situation? They get 2-1-2 off of Peter the Great. Hey, Not necessarily a great card usually, but again, it might win you the game. Okay, that sounds kind of okay. Nothing fell here yet. So Brandenburg is not in a position to add, you know, a lot of production. They could buy up their military. They're dangerous there. We got to watch that they don't just sort of buy through the production phase, this phase, what they need. We can't give them an early card pick. We can't give them too late a card pick, maybe, because they might be able to reach their hegemony goals. They have 2 production they could build, I guess, right off the bat. That would put them toward the top. If they get Peter and 2 production, and we're talking about, what, 2 military as well, they are right up there. And they have a lot of resources available. Fuck. It's going to be hard to stop them. So as somebody points that possibility out, other players have to worry. Everybody's kind of scrambling, but you know, there's still the danger that Russia just grabs a win. Now, this particular phase, Russia's like, I control it, buddy. And at this point, other people are like, yeah, you control it. Maybe we don't buy those cards. Or maybe we only buy one of them. Ouch. Russia's being told, you have to buy the Peter the Great card and thus go before Brandenburg. Poland's situation for victory, not really very strong. We don't have much of an army. We're kind of on the ropes on things. We do have a lot of income. The battery is almost the same as Peter. He gives them +1, +2 as well. Brandenburg's already in the lead up there by a lot. So these are the important things from Peter. So everybody's like looking and saying, oh shit, everything's fucking going to hell. This is the card Russia won it. And we're thinking about, that could be very potent for Brandenburg as well. We don't want them getting that particularly. But, yeah. And Sweden is like, look, if I'm giving this up, I am not buying a shit card. You can't make me do that. So that's kind of the place where we're at, is I think Russia's saying, okay, I'll take Peter. Poland is saying, fine, I'll take Bathory, not having as much power as others. Denmark is saying, I'll take Christina. Sweden is saying, I'll leave Trondelag. And it's just this giant agreement to try to prevent Brandenburg from winning the game off the cards that are showing up. Violates the agreement right away. They're forced to go first. They buy Peter the Great instead. Not really wanting Bathory. They're like, that's a bum deal. Could I have bought Frederick? I don't want him. I don't have that much advantage from royal control right now. This has no Polish province under... That's an interesting question. What is a Polish province? Is that within the original territory of Poland, or does the fact that I have Riga under royal control matter? I don't know. That sounds like a fuzzy thing. There's a couple of military, not in Danzig. I didn't want to pay the extra for that. In Warsaw, which could reach Brandenburg. Can also shift around, do other things if need be. Got enough money to buy the armies in Kiev, if I wish to. Which is kind of an interesting thing. I could raid lots of Russian stuff. I've just pissed everybody off by agreeing to a deal and then kind of violating it. But it's like, I didn't violate it by much, man, and I really didn't want that guy, and it felt like it's a close enough deal, so sorry. Too bad. How much does it piss anyone off? Look, I've played in games where people got pissed enough to throw the game based on something like that. Only Russia would be in that position. That would be really stupid. And Russia is the next closest person to winning, and giving them that capability, giving them the bonus in it, felt a little unreasonable to Poland, and I think it's a fair move on their part. On the other hand, also, when I play a game solo, while maybe I would have somebody be really pissed about something like that, it may come down to well, I'm just going to take it out on you for the rest of the game. I'm not going to throw away my chances of winning, especially when I'm in essentially a decent place to do so. Next, by agreement, I build a couple of cav. Plan is to go to Finland with them. Conceivably, I could actually screw around and take Prussian territory instead. Maybe. Maybe that would be worth more. Not sure yet. And I build the naval leader. I'll actually build these down here. That allows me to shift directly down, keep both my fleets together, if I so desire. If I so desire. This is somewhat against the agreement as well, but I'm like, don't worry, don't worry. They're cav, they're not going after your fortress. You know, if I built cav here, it would be able to get to you anyway. I think that's a good enough excuse. That puts it on Denmark. Danes follow the agreement to the letter. They build a unit in Jutland and pick up that card. They're low on resources, but you know, we're looking at the possibility of shipping back, using our navies to maybe invade Pomerania or Bremen or whatever. Well, we can't really get Bremen, can we? We could. We have a lot of options. And trying to break up Brandenburg's power. And we've just lost our national ambition against Sweden, which is kind of a nice thing. Now Sweden can trust us a little bit more. Question, and I need to brew some tea and get a pipe before I finish that, is does Russia stay true to their word? You might argue, look, they got to try to prevent Brandenburg from gaining the victory. But +1 production isn't going to put them on top. +2 of these isn't going to put them on top. It puts them close, but with everybody moving against them, maybe it's not enough. I think I'm going to go with the card anyway, with a lot of grumbles, and try to figure out if we can take Kiev this turn and just end this. And everything is making me kind of snoozy. Yeah, I got up real early, but I also had a decent night's sleep. I don't know, more than decent. Anyway, Russia has to decide if they're going or not, and if they are, I think they've got to buy that stupid leader, because Brandenburg is looking at +1 and +2. They've got this. +1 puts us really close. +2 puts us really close. It's just too risky. Here's the thing, nobody will trust us, you know, even though, yeah, there's some argument to be made that Poland, you know, Poland did screw them over. But it's like, yeah, but you know, you deserved it, man. We wanted this yummy income one for royal provinces, making, you know, if everybody else has to buy stupid shitty cards, everybody except, well, the Swedes bought a card, yeah, all the cards went. But this is a really sweet card, especially for Brandenburg with its heavy levels of royal control. I built a workshop down here for cloth. I put a navy here to help protect this so that the Danes can't take it, can't ship over here and attack into Bremen right away. I built a fortress in Brandenburg. That's pumping my military up closer and closer. I'm getting dangerously close to my actual, which is one more card, and Königsberg and Pomerania, which I both hold. I really need to hold Pomerania. I think I build another fortress there. Leaves me with a fair reserve of coins. Russia also has a pretty good reserve. No one else too much. Poland has 3. That's not too bad. I'm going to go with that. It's not an obvious, hey, that's good enough or not, but... And now the Swedes actually have the military hegemon right now, with everybody kind of pushing close by, a lot of military being built. I think we're at a point where the end is going to happen soon, and Sweden is like, I'm just fucked, man. My goals are just so big. I don't feel like this is, you know, the first game, Sweden was easily the target of both Denmark and Russia. We saw that happening again here. It seems to be a thing, you know, that is desirable to do to them. Denmark historically went after them. Russia needs another sea access. Estonia was a possibility, but we got chased out of there. So Finland, you know, has become kind of the constant. And I got to have a total of 9 provinces to reach my special ambition. Now, Sweden does have a nice capability. All their units, well, no, their infantry hit on better results. Why am I building Cav? Because I thought Cav would do the same. I wasn't really paying attention. But I don't think there's the, yeah, there's not the results, so it wouldn't be the case. Cav is kind of nice, is the issue, and I think about the Swedish Cav being so powerful. Yes, the infantry was powerful too, but the Swedish Cav was really effective in this period. So I'm like, seems like a good idea. Yeah, the bonus doesn't affect them though. Oh wait, no, that's fort boats. The big issues are Russia and Brandenburg are the ones that are close to a victory. So those I feel like are the ones that I want to make sure have to go first. Brandenburg's capabilities can actually help them, and can help things out if Russia seizes Kiev. So I'm going to make Russia go first. Russia goes for Kiev, Estonia, and we're making an attack on the Poles here, who don't have any bonuses. I don't control a province that I need to fight for. This card is so fucking useless. So I've got 3 Cav versus 1 Polish infantry. Of course, this is Russian Cav, which sucks. Ooh, a bunch of misses and a hit. Russia's paying a price already. And that is going to be a dual control area if, well, I don't know, the Poles can't just stick around there. They're going to have to fight if they do. And their numbers are not in good shape. I could buy a couple of these units from Polisia to go up there and try to do something. Brandenburg takes its free move, but also expends moves. They're letting the Poles have these to play with. Put 3 units in there. We're hoping that can easily deal. I mean, I don't know. We're hoping it can deal with the Russians. We moved this fleet over here for another cost. And now we've got 3 armies against the fort. We're bonus against forts. And I think we killed it. We got 2 hits on it. It didn't get any blocks, but it got a hit against us. And we have one other thing we controlled, which is the attack here. We got 2 hits to 1. So we wipe out the 2 Russian armies. Now comes an ugly part. I think I'm going to force the Poles to go next. Denmark is making some noises. They're like, I don't want to pull my troops out. First of all, I can't, because there are boats here. I mean, I could battle my way through. Or buy. I do have a buck left. I don't want to pull my boats out, or my troops out. I can just buy this and go across to Bremen. Can't count on mercenaries, man. I don't want to pull my boats out and stuff. Don't make me go first. I want to make sure that you do something okay. Otherwise, I'm not dealing with Brandenburg. But anyway, Poland has to go next. Poland's in kind of a rough position. We can protect Riga. Or we could try to smack against one of these. We actually have a couple of cav here. Riga is huge. So we will go up to there to try to beat the Russians out of Riga. Do we want to buy an army? Chances are that they get a hit on us. Why don't we bring yet another army up? Or another cav, whatever. So we now have 3 cav and an infantry against the Russians. This is only during your own turn. And it wouldn't help anyway. We got a hull of 1 hit on the Russians. And the Russians caused 2 to us. So that'll be the losses we take. And the Swedes can be real dicks here. Those are horsemen. They can put forward, hey, look, you know, we can screw you over completely if you don't do what you agreed to. So do it and we'll keep our word. We promise. Anyhow. Do the Danes listen to the Swedish threats and try to keep to their agreement? I don't know if the Swedes will, if they're in there. Yeah, the Danes feel forced into it. They're not happy. There's a lot of hatred going on across the board between just about everyone at this point. The Danes have a better answer. They pay to move the unit over to Bremen and grab that. They're leaving their cav up here and saying, look, you know, I don't feel safe with you. That may be enough to convince the Swedes. On the other hand, There's still the two armies over there. Do the Swedes adhere to their agreement? Which would mean basically moving into Finland, maybe Estonia, to be honest. Probably shouldn't go for both. The Swedes do agree, do keep their agreement. What that means is this converts, but then they're going to give it back after moving. Swedes do decide to take their chance on Estonia. Why? Because they're bottled up if they're in Finland. That fortress is painful. I don't know, Finland's worth more. Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's take Finland instead. And that'll take a production away from Russia. Right. What does that do? That ends the military phase, I think. Let's look for places where there's ugliness. There's ugliness here, which means Riga has to take a hit. Workshops are cheaper than cities for them, so they will lose a flax production. And this other flax is not producing because the Russians are there. All my hegemony numbers were fucked up. At least one counter on each one. I gotta recount every time. And I don't know how much I trust it, but I tried recounting and everything. But we have Prussians still ahead in the mercantile, Russia ahead in production, Swedes in military, nothing changed in terms of the actual positioning. In terms of closeness to victory, man, it's a dangerous and scary world, is all I have to say. I mean, let's look. Sweden's nowhere near. Denmark, not really close, but their national conditions have changed, and they are interested in the Hanover region. So that's pretty sweet. Prussia, hegemony they're not close to. Their national positioning, though, they're very close. They just have to buy another card. And then if they can hold on to basically Königsberg and Pomerania, both of which are fortified now, well, Königsberg was at the beginning, they pretty much have a win at the end of next turn. I don't know how to stop them. Everybody's going to have to work together to do that. But meanwhile, I mean, Poland still needs these two. Got no other goal that they're really close to. But Russia is going to gain this. They still just need Kiev. So there's no chance for Russia to win on the next turn that I know of, because they're not going to just get Kiev. They have to begin conquest or whatever. Which means Brandenburg is still the big bunny that everybody's chasing. But what's ugly here is that I kind of know that the next turn is going to I feel like next turn it's going to be over. But I can't be absolutely certain. So I think I'm going to load this up. We might have a very short video at the end of it, but that's okay. I like to do the wrap and everything.